Once Pakistan was a member of the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization and a member of Central Treaty Organization. Today, Pakistan has become a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. An opening has also been achieved recently with neighboring Iran. The recent visit by Pakistan's Chief of Staff to Tehran was significant in opening a conversation which has now been followed up just 2 days ago by a meeting by the two national security advisors. The current PML-N government has also revitalized Pakistan's long-standing defense relations with long-standing friends, Turkey and Saudi Arabia respectively. The contour that is becoming visible but is not delineated precisely is China. The consequences of the deepening of Pakistan's enduring relationship with China through the Belt and Road Initiative are coming into view gradually. As the Gwadar node of Belt and Road Initiative is built and China's investments in Pakistan reach fruition, relations between these two all-weather friends and iron brothers are for the first time in history achieving real economic amplitude beyond mere platitudes. And it is worthwhile to note that the Pakistani node is perhaps the most advanced in all of the Belt and Road Initiative to date. Pakistan and China share the aims of internal reconciliation in Afghanistan, steadying Pakistan-India relationship, and a stable security situation within Pakistan. Yet in terms of security cooperation, Pakistan and China remain partners and are yet to become allies in the traditional sense of the word. And now, India. The unremittingly hostile, anti-Pakistan stance by the current Indian government has reduced drastically the space for any advocacy of peace in Pakistan. India over the last 4 years has wasted a precious political moment in which there has been political consensus within Pakistan on peace with India. And no political party has been indulging in anti-India bashing to get votes. India has allowed this moment to dissipate. Instead, we have seen the escalation in Indian bombings on the line of control, which have been matched with escalation in anti-Pakistan rhetoric, which often descends to baiting and bashing Pakistan. And thus we find India today as a belligerent and highly militarized neighbor. After refusing to own up to it since 2004, almost to the day 1 year ago, the then new Indian Army Chief, Bipin Rawat, publicly confirmed India's cold start doctrine against Pakistan. India has amassed men, material, and garrisons along its border with Pakistan, while its China-specific Mountain Strike Corps has been languishing. Pakistan's perception of threat from India is not reflex. It is based upon a thorough assessment of Indian capacity to threaten Pakistan militarily from an unprecedented forward position. The past year was the deadliest yet for Indian bombings of civilians on the line of control. In 2017, more than 1,300 ceasefire violations, the highest ever in recent past, have resulted in 52 deaths and 175 injuries. Deadlier still continue the gross violations of human rights in Indian-occupied Kashmir. From political repression and suppression of freedom of speech, to maiming, blinding, and killing civilians by firing pellets, and through mass killings and forced disappearances, torture, rape, and sexual abuse, all these continue apace under the fig leaves of laws, such as the Terrorist Activities and Disruptive Act, TADA, Prevention of Terrorism Act, POTA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, AFSPA, and Public Safety Act. Ladies and gentlemen, justice cannot be delivered on Mumbai alone. it has to be delivered on Samjhota Express also. But Pakistan will continue to support the just cause of the Kashmiri people morally and diplomatically around the world. So here are the facts. Cold start deployment against Pakistan, lethal violations of line of control, and human rights abuses in Kashmir are compounded by India's use of third countries for espionage against Pakistan. The recent case of Kulbhushan Yadav is illustrative of the not war, not peace strategy being followed by India. And in fact, the perception of India is one of the foundational divergences between Pakistan and the United States. For nearly 2 decades, the United States has deemed India as its strategic partner in the region as a counterweight to China. And this has been reiterated in the recently announced US national security strategy. The United States has been trying to convince Pakistan that India is not a threat. And therefore, Pakistan should also recalculate its strategic calculus. But the truism remains true. Threat is calculated on capacity, not intent. And both India's capacity and intent are hostile to Pakistan today. But India is not the only source of divergence between the strategic worldview of Pakistan and the United States. What Nadia Shadlow has termed American denial syndrome is the second and more topical. The United States has conducted its longest war, bar none, in Afghanistan. It has spent nearly $1 trillion, sacrificed more than 2,000 US soldiers, and injured thousands of soldiers more. What is the result? The graveyard of empires has not closed its gates yet. As Secretary of Defense James Mattis, my counterpart, announced last June, the United States, quote unquote, is not winning in Afghanistan right now. And this denial rests in the causes of not winning. Pakistan is a scapegoat because billions and billions, again in quotation marks, is a handy excuse to forestall rigorous, realistic analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, billions and billions is a callously transactional, counterproductive, and offensive argument to the Pakistani people. It's a country whose people, armed forces, economy, and infrastructure have suffered losses and pain beyond imagination during the anti-terror alliance with the United States since 2001. Shall we begin to put a price tag on use of ground lines of communication, on use of airlines of communication, which average 300 sorties daily for the last 16 years? Shall we put a price tag on use of ports and air bases? Shall we put a price tag, which cannot be put, but which let's try, the matchless intelligence cooperation that decimated Al-Qaeda? Shall we put a price tag on the 3 million Afghan refugees that Pakistan continues to host? And no one can put a price tag on the thousands of Pakistani civilians and armed forces personnel who were martyred and continue to lose their lives by hand of those who operate from across the border in Afghanistan. The list continues. What we need to remember and fully internalize that today's Pakistan is a post-Zarb-e-Azb Pakistan, which was one of the largest anti-terror operations ever executed by any country in recent history, perhaps in all history. We cleaned North Waziristan, we cleaned our tribal areas, we cleaned Karachi, and we cleaned Balochistan. Through Raddul Fasad, we are in the process of cleaning the rest of Pakistan. We continue to contribute to global counterterrorism efforts through Pakistan Navy's participation in Task Force 150 and 151. Ladies and gentlemen, the US forces may have the counterinsurgency manual, but Pakistan's armed forces have done it and prevailed over terrorism. The way forward is not through threats, notices, and suspensions of support. Mutual recrimination distracts us from the prize towards which we should direct our eyes, a sustainable peace in a democratic Afghanistan. It is one of Pakistan's foreign policy's highest objectives. Yet we are firm that the Afghan war will not be fought on Pakistani soil. Just as we are firm in declaring that we have eliminated safe havens of terrorists and are clearing the remnants of terrorists from our soil. But it is also a fact that according to US own statistics, 43% of Afghanistan is outside the control or influence of its government. So the conclusion stares us in the face that nearly half of Afghanistan is a safe haven. And before Pakistan is pointed out as the enemy, that 43% also needs to be cleared and dealt with. It is convenient to blame Pakistan for cross-border terrorism, but the United States has not lifted a finger to help us fence the border, an effort that Pakistan has begun successfully. And we expect the United States and the Afghan forces to exercise the same kind of control and authority on their side of the border that they expect Pakistan to exercise. It is still more convenient to blame Pakistan for the US failure in pacifying Afghanistan. Yet it remains to be seen whether the United States will make a serious effort to pursue internal reconciliation seriously. Instead, we are told by President Trump, again in quotation marks, we will kill terrorists. The recent suspension of military aid by the United States comes in the wake of a more graver suspension, which is a suspension of strategic dialogue with Pakistan for now more than a year. We hear complaints of the failure of high-level dialogue, but high-level dialogue will not yield results until backed up by consistent dialogue at the working level, and that consistent dialogue has been missing. In his book, Playing to the Edge, Michael Hayden disagrees that the OBL incident in 2011 poisoned the relationship between the United States and Pakistan. In fact, he writes, it merely tore the veil off. Distinguished guests, now all veils are off. And it is time for a courteous yet ruthlessly candid dialogue between Pakistan and the United States with everything on the table. I want to say this again. Now all veils are off. And it is time for a courteous yet ruthlessly candid dialogue between Pakistan and the United States with everything on the table. It would appear that impulses are running ahead of policy in the 21st century. A reminder is in order. Logistics trump strategy. This is as true today as for Napoleon and Hitler in their attack on Russia. And as Michael Strage has said, in wartime, logistics eat strategy for lunch. But of course, we have our neighbor Afghanistan, and Pakistan sees Afghanistan as a sovereign neighbor with whom we share abiding bonds of history, trade, and culture. We respect the sovereignty of Afghanistan and its people and wish to see our neighbor prosper as a democracy. But Pakistan would like this courtesy to be reciprocated. As Robert Frost wrote, good fences make good neighbors. Pakistan's defense today is robust. Our vigilant and highly trained armed forces continue to protect and defend our land, sea, and air borders. Robustness of our arms is buttressed by the robustness of Pakistan's democracy. And I'm delighted to note that there are many international partners, particularly the European Union, which has come out to support Pakistan's democracy. But ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has come out of a very dark period of terrorism, energy shortage, and economic deprivation. The people of Pakistan wish to preserve this peace, for which they have paid with blood of their neighbors, friends, relatives, and armed forces. Just this past Saturday, I visited the home of 2nd Lieutenant Mueed in Lahore. Lieutenant Mueed, age 21, was martyred by cross-border fire in North Waziristan in December. And to this martyrdom I say, no more. Let us choose cooperation over castigation. Yet faced with castigation, this resilient democracy will rise to defend itself. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Pakistan Pindabad.